What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with the overall market, what Jerome Powell just said that's very important for the stock market, what's happening to Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers, and what you should be watching for as time progresses as we approach tomorrow and beyond. I'm going to talk about what data is coming out that's super important and what the stock market could do as we approach tomorrow. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. So, anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. Let's talk about how things are looking. So, what's going on so far is when you look at the market, we continue to pump after Jerome Powell gave his speech. Now, in the beginning, the market pumped a little bit, it started cooling off, and as soon as the rate hike decision came out, the market started to push a little higher. Then Jerome Powell came out and the guy pumped the markets again, and the market ended up pushing very, very nicely. Now, why did the market pump like this, and what does this mean for the future going forward? We have a couple of dominoes that need to drop to help the market squeeze for the end of the year. We have two main ones so far, at least for this month. The two biggest ones are going to be Jerome Powell with the Federal Reserve, and then the other one was like Apple's earnings, at least for this week. And so far, the Federal Reserve is a major, major domino, and this has favored the bulls. It's favored the bulls for more upside because of what Jerome Powell has announced. And one of the things I've said on this channel is that November/December could see a nice uptrend for the stock market, a very nice squeeze. And so far, it's still fitting that narrative. My claim is still showing lots and lots of strength, and we're likely going to see this play out as time goes on. But before that happens, we could see a slight little pullback tomorrow, but more upside in the future. And I'm still leaning more bullish for November and December. Let's talk about Jerome Powell. The guy basically said nothing. He just repeated the same things over and over again. But just to be more clear, the Fed did not change rates this time around. And that's very important because the Fed hinted at the possibility of them just pausing very soon, but there's no guarantee about it just yet. What Powell basically said is that the economy is very resilient, the economy is very strong. However, despite how strong things are looking, too much strong data is not always a good thing because this could have a negative effect on the Fed's policies, such as the jobs numbers. Powell also said that the Fed does not know if it's going to raise rates again or not. They're not 100% convicted because they have to wait and see what the data suggests, right? The same old things Powell has been saying. But he said that the Fed could be open to doing so, but as of right now, there's no plan to do it. And that's something that the market liked because right now, on the table, what we're expecting is that the Fed is going to just not raise rates again for the rest of the year. That's what the stock market is expecting. The market was expecting it for this month, and that is what ended up happening. The Fed did not raise rates. That helped the market pump. And if they do it again for December, the market's going to pump even more. And there's a good chance of that happening because the latest inflationary numbers have been as expected. I've shown you guys those on this channel. And that could be, pretty good for the markets. With Powell and the Federal Reserve out of the way, that is so far favoring the bulls, and that's a good sign. However, for tomorrow, we have Apple's earnings after the market closes. We will see what happens with that. We just had PayPal's earnings come out. This was actually pretty good. PayPal has raised the full year profit forecast and they beat on EPS and revenue, which is good news for them. We're going to be waiting to see what happens during the call, however, but so far it's been quite positive. When it comes to data affecting the markets, I just wanted to call out that we have initial jobless claims in the morning, an hour before the market opens. And then after that, we have some more bill auction data coming out. And that's pretty much it, just mortgage rates for the 15 and 30 years. And that's pretty much it at about noon Eastern time. So there's not much data coming out except for initial jobless claims. We'll be watching to see how that affects the markets. And by the way, let me just mention before I talk about that, initial jobless claims should be between 210 and 217,000 for tomorrow. If it's between there, that could help the market more. If it's a little bit low or a little bit too hot, that could be a little negative. So just be very careful. Now, to add on to this, the fear and greed index is on fear mode. The market's a little fearful. It's still, in the fear mode, but it's not as fearful as before, right? We're not in extreme fear right now. The market has improved slightly. Market momentum is not in extreme fear. It's now just fearful. And one thing that I mentioned that's super important is the McCullen volume summation index. This is still, once again, at these lows, and it tends to balance once we reach these really lows right over here. So that's very important because when we reach these lows on the summation index, that tends to signal that the market's in the bottoming process. Now that we reached the lows, I was telling you the market should bottom very soon. And what happened? SPY managed to close above 420. Once again, guys, the market looks like it has bottomed, and we're gonna likely see more upside. But before I gain more confidence in that claim, we have to wait and see what happens with Apple's earnings. So approaching Apple's earnings, that's going to be very telling. From a seasonality basis, based off seasonality, one of the things I told everyone was that I've been saying this since August. The market's going to, trade sideways, then drop. That's what happened. I told you there's more downside for September. That's what happened. In October, I told you there was more downside, and once we broke below, we were at 412 or something. I wasn't sure if the market was about to bottom. I wasn't sure about the bottom. That's the one thing I wasn't able to get right, to be honest with everyone. That was really difficult. But then once the market got to bounce, at least this week, we were talking about a potential bottom forming because seasonality was suggesting that. And I told you all that, look, the market's going to bottom in October, and November/December are most likely going to be bullish months. The midterm election year, this relates to all elections, including presidential elections, and this seasonality cycle has worked for this year. So all this data has suggested there's going to be upside for the markets coming. And so far, with Jerome Powell pumping the markets, with the market uptrending, with SPY bouncing from 409 and hitting 422 today, almost 423, it just barely closed below that. It's really aligning with seasonality, right? The market tends to bottom at the end of October and then bounce as we hit November. That's exactly what happened. What I've been screaming on this channel for a very long time. Now, I'm not super confident, extremely confident that the market's going to just keep exploding like this. I don't want to promise that. We're going to be waiting for Apple's earnings, but I believe that it's very probable that the market's going to uptrend. It's going to uptrend for the next 2 months. I still hold that view. I believe there's going to be more upside coming. So there's a big difference between me promising it and me saying that I'm super confident or less confident. I am confident the market's going to see lots of upside, but I'm not extremely fixated on that until we get Apple's earnings. But I'm still leaning in that direction that there's upside still coming. So, anyways, let's talk about the market. What's going to likely happen for tomorrow? I'm anticipating a slight pullback in the market because we have a bearish divergence on SPY. And on the daily time frame, you're going to notice that we're testing the 200 EMA. So SPY has this resistance at 423. That's worth watching. We might project a little bit off of this, retrace just a little bit to either 420 or 421.5. Our fib retracements, the zero point 0.5 retracement is very close to 420, and the 0.618 retracement is very close to 419. So we might see this thing retrace a little bit, just a tiny bit, somewhere around these levels. We also have this gap down here at 418 to fill. I don't know if that's going to fill or not. You don't have to fill that. So look for a little retracement to get closer to 420, then a bounce. Very nice bounce either at the end of the day tomorrow or by Friday, and we should see SPY eventually break up to 425 plus very soon. All right, so I hope that's as clear as possible. A little drop and bounce is what I'm anticipating because we have a bearish divergence and we're testing the daily 200 EMA on SPY. I think that this trend is going to be following throughout the market, and that's why I want to break this down. So on SPY, let me just call out that for support, make sure you watch 422 as key support, followed by 421.5. If we lose that, watch 420, 419, which happens to be support and very close to our 0.618 retracement. And we have 418 and etc. after that. If we're really bullish and we break above 423.5, then we could push up very close to 424 and then 425, but 425 is going to be stronger resistance. My gut tells me, once again, a little retracement is coming thanks to the bearish divergence and the fact that we're at some critical resistance. We're going to retrace a little bit, just a bit, either to 420 or a little bit higher than that, and then the bulls will step in later on and push this thing right back up to 425, either by Friday or a little bit later than that. But I do anticipate some upside nonetheless, and I think that the market is going to continue to push. Apple's earnings will also affect us for Friday, so we'll just have to wait and see. For the QQQ, we don't really have much of a bearish divergence, but we're very overbought. So let me just show you the RSI right now. So when you look at the QQQ on the 4-hour time frame, the RSI is at 67, but on the 30 minutes time frame, last time I checked it, the RSI was at 80. So when we hit the 80 on the RSI, we tend to see this thing cool off a bit. So watch for a little retracement towards 355, or so just a small, very healthy looking retracement at this previous resistance becoming support, very close to the 20 EMA on the 30 minutes time frame. We're going to retrace maybe a little bit, and then we're going to see buyers try to step in and push this thing even higher later on towards 360, because on the daily time frame, you're going to notice that 361 is our 50 EMA. And I think on the 4 hour time frame, I don't know if this is perfect, but on the 4 hour, we have a 360 as resistance. So 360 to 361 is going to be resistance. I think we're going to push up here later on. We might first retrace a bit, then bounce as time goes on. For Nvidia looks bullish. I want to just call that out. And by the way, I forgot to call this out again. Sorry, guys. For the QQQ, don't forget 355 is support, then 353.5, and also 352. I think it's going to retrace a bit and bounce. Okay, anyways, for Nvidia, let's just call out these levels. Nvidia has support right over here at about this 425 area. We're actually a little bit higher in the after hours. If we lose that, watch it come down towards 422.5, 420, 417. If we lose 417, we're coming all the way down towards 414. That's a big retracement. I don't really think Nvidia is going to drop that hard. Now we have a really nice accumulation, a Wyckoff accumulation structure. We could see this like SOS phase play out where we kind of like retrace a little bit, and then we eventually shop and start pushing higher. But what I think could happen to Nvidia is we pull back a little bit, we maybe backtest for 20 or so, then we bounce and see this thing start pushing up even higher. And I think Nvidia will eventually make its way up to about 440 over the next week or so. So look for a little retracement and a bounce on Nvidia. That's what I'm anticipating, and I think Nvidia has more upside nonetheless. All right, so look for a little retracement. It's going to be completely healthy, and then a nice push to the upside as Nvidia has potential to do so. I'm going to start with Tesla, then I'm going to talk about Apple last on TradingView. For Tesla, we have something very important to discuss. Tesla is turning bullish. It's looking quite nice so far. It was very tricky in the morning, but then the buyers came in, especially after we saw the data from the Fed. And we have a nice accumulation structure on Tesla. This kind of looks like a sloppy cup and handle like formation. I see this thing going to 210 very soon. I think Tesla's going to break 210. Before that happens, however, I just want to call out that on the 30 minutes time frame, we have a bearish divergence, or we almost have it. It's very close to that. It's not perfect, but it's very, very close. But I also want to call out that we are still testing the 30 minutes 200 EMA. So at this 200 EMA, we have some resistance as well. So I think that Tesla might retrace a bit towards 204, maybe even 202.27. Look for a little retracement with the market, and then Tesla should bounce, a little drop and bounce, and Tesla's going to be pushing up towards 210 to 212. So watch 208, 210, and 212 as resistance. Watch 205, 202.5, and 200 as support. Look for a small retracement and a nice bounce on Tesla, and 210 should be coming over the next couple of days from a technical standpoint. Last but not least, for Apple, Apple is still uptrending very hard, but I do see one little issue with this uptrend, and that's the fact that we are once again forming a bearish divergence right here and during the after hours. So we might see Apple reject off 175 and retrace towards 172.8, and then just kind of trend sideways for a bit. Maybe some investors will be a little apprehensive with earnings, not really buy as much. So look for a little retracement and a bounce on Apple, and it might retrace a bit and continue to push up higher. But the thing is, we have a potential bullish cross on the PPO almost coming. We also look bullish on the daily. So Apple might cool off a bit, and then we could get an intraday bounce, or the bounce will happen after earnings. So I do believe there's a good chance from a technical standpoint that Apple has upside, and it's going to eventually make its way up to 176. So for tomorrow, look for a little retracement and a bounce, or it just bounces after earnings. The bounce could be a little delayed, and then we start pushing up nonetheless. I anticipate some upside for Apple, at least based off technicals. As long as earnings are decent, it should continue, and this should help the market continue to push. I believe that a lot of the stocks out there have very similar trends developing, especially on their algorithms. So when you look at the VIX, we have a bullish divergence. The VIX might bounce to 17.62 to 18, causing the market to, or it could be because of the market potentially cooling off a bit. And then the VIX might reject and continue to downtrend because we look bearish on the 4 hour time frame. This could lead to the market potentially eventually bouncing, continuing to uptrend. I believe that the market, and what the VIX is suggesting, is that the market will potentially cool off a bit, then bounce thanks to this bullish divergence on the VIX, which could still lead to big changes. On a couple of other tickers, Neo had its deliveries and they did relatively well. As long as they hold up after earnings, as long as earnings is decent and it's not too bad, we could start to see Neo try to fill a lot of these gaps in the eights over the next few months. It could even push even higher. For Microsoft stock, we're going to be watching the 4-hour time frame. We have a nice accumulation developing on the charts. Look for a little retracement, however, because we have a potential slowdown at this resistance that's coming. It might cool off towards 345, then bounce for 350. We're also going to be watching some other tickers. I'm just going to be kind of quick with today's video. So for Coinbase, look for a little retracement towards 75, then a bounce. It may backtest this 200 EMA. If not, the 20 EMA, and watch it continue to push up for 80. So a drop in bounce seems probable off this inverse head and shoulders. Google is due for a bounce. We were talking about this yesterday. Look for a little retracement towards 126.64, then a bounce for 129. It still looks bullish on the chart. Amazon is still looking quite good. It might retrace a bit towards 135, this previous resistance for a backtest, and then continue to push up towards 140. And finally, for Meta, we could see this thing try to continue to push up higher towards 318. It may retrace towards 308 before that happens, maybe even 306 to backtest the 200 EMA, and then a bounce off that could push this thing and launch it towards this high at 318. I believe there's more upside coming nonetheless. All right, guys, so that's it for the video. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. The market may retrace in the morning, then start bouncing, and we're going to be watching these levels very carefully. Don't forget, Apple has earnings for tomorrow. I'll see you guys very soon. Thank you all so much. Have a good night and peace out.